is truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan, live Monday, December 16th, 2019. Oh my Lord. Half a month left in this corrupt decade. So, very excited for the new year. Obviously, the campaign is in full swing. I have been spending most of today making phone calls to the fine residents of South Bend, Indiana, because I believe that the corporate media should not be allowed to literally mold, shape, market, and invent a candidate out of thin air when it's so easy to prove that the candidate is a fraud. When it's so easy to prove that the candidate is terrible. And I've already spoken with some folks today that show that. And I am happy to announce that I believe probably Wednesday, I will be going to South Bend, Indiana to report there. I think it's important. Listen, Bernie is surging, but the bottom line is the media has invented Pete Buttigieg into a real threat, particularly in Iowa. And we both know if he wins Iowa, the media is going to push him as Obama, the white man. So I think it's very important for aggressive in-the-field journalism to show what he has done in South Bend, Indiana, and what he has not done. So I'll have more on that a little bit later. One person I spoke with, a pastor there, I asked him, can you kind of describe what Pete has done for the economy there? He said, have you ever seen The Hunger Games? Which I have. If you haven't, it's basically a horrible movie about a competition for people. If you lose, you die. He said, that's what it's like in South Bend, Indiana. So I will have more information on that, but I think I'm going there on Wednesday. Obviously, the debate is on Thursday, and you obviously are supporting us. So thank you. Bernie is surging. We also have YouTube. It is now admitted. I was going to get to this yesterday, but I was having tech issues. YouTube has now finally admitted that they are essentially hiding channels like this in a cave in favor of authoritative channels like Fox News and CNN. Yes, I'm not making this up. Like Fox News and CNN. So, before we get to Bernie's surge, always got a little homework. Smash that like button. We're starting with 220 viewers. We need to get that up. 220 viewers, 100 likes. So we need over 100 of you to smash that like button. It's the thumbs up button right under this video. The more people that press that like button, the more people that will see this live stream. Please. Even if you don't like me, just fake it. Jen is not here today. She is actually currently on a mission. She's on a mission for status coup. An undercover mission, which I think you're going to like very much. Top secret undercover mission Jen is at right now, so we will have information on that very shortly for you, but I think it's a very fun, exciting mission. So smash that like button. You know the drill. We're trying to grow our text system, so text 474747 to Coup, COUP. Makes a big difference, helps us get around this YouTube suppression. We currently, Anthony, have over 300 of you have signed up for the text system. So we got to get that number up too. Follow us at Status Coup. We're live on Periscope as we speak. Follow us on Twitch. Also, we're trying to grow there. Not easy, but we're trying to grow in many different places, especially with the YouTube shenanigans, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. So definitely follow us on Twitch and sign up for our email list at statuscoup.com/join. statuscoup.com/join. Greatest man ever, Jordan. What's the status on that huge game-changing story you are working on? Thank you for reminding me about that. Thank you, Lawrence. This is a super chat, $10 in the super chat. Unfortunately, the game-changing story, Jen and I are at the mercy of the outlet that we are currently working on it for. The good news is it's a really big outlet, so that's good. The other good news is we have a contract, so we can't get screwed over. The bad news, I'm pretty sure it's not going out till January. At this point, it's December 16th. I was speaking with the outlet today, and they told me, basically next week, departments are shut down, people are home for the holidays, blah, 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 blah. It still needs to go through different levels from... I guess they have separate fact checkers and go through legal review. We do have confidential documents as part of this story, so don't think I'm just like teasing you for fun here. I'm as impatient as you. But we're not self-publishing this one. We're publishing it through a larger outlet. But as of now, we are very, very encouraged that it's going to be published January. So stay tuned for that. And again, this is a super chat, so that's a great way of supporting us. We're also now at 743 fine paying members to Status Coup. We hope you'll consider signing up today, especially since we're going to South Bend this week to show the real Pete Buttigieg. So we're getting out there, baby, and we've been out there. You know the map. This is where we've been in the last year and a half on very little resources. So help us go elsewhere. Help us add to this map, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Bernie's surging. Bernie is surging. That is the top story here. This is actually from thehill.com, and it shows that Bernie has taken the lead in some places and is extremely competitive in others. Senator Bernie Sanders is rising in the polls ahead of Thursday's pivotal debate in L.A., reestablishing his standing in the top tier. He was always in the top tier, contrary to what the media was trying to sell. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll get to the main points. Blah, 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 blah. Sanders appears to be hitting his stride at just the right moment, surging past Warren and cutting into Biden's lead in new national surveys. Can I just make a point here? So what's amazing to me is the corporate media narrative. Oh, wow. We got 62 watching on Periscope. Share it on Periscope, too. The corporate media narrative has been, Medicare for All has been the death nail of Elizabeth Warren's campaign. Medicare for All, healthcare, just destroyed her campaign. It took her from leading as the national frontrunner in some polls to now, she's free-falling. If that's the case, why is Bernie Sanders, who is unabashedly for Medicare for All, in surging while Elizabeth Warren is falling? Could it be that it went from I'm with Bernie to I'm kind of all over the place? I mean, we're going to get into the fact that now she's saying she's using the word choice, which is clearly a giant signal she was never serious about Medicare for All in the first place. But this narrative that Elizabeth Warren is suffering because she was for Medicare for All, she started going down when she started moonwalking for Medicare for All. I don't even understand. It's like the land of make-believe, CNN and the New York Times. When I was a kid, I used to love the WWF wrestling. I think I knew it was kind of fake after a while, but, it was like a excuse for me to watch a soap opera, but it was fake. I know it's fake now, but it was entertaining. I feel like the media is just pushing fake news. I'm not trying to sound like Trump, but I mean, it's so obvious why she's sliding. And if Medicare for All is so unpopular, why is Bernie surging and Elizabeth Warren sliding? Very, very interesting. Thank you, James Bird, $1.99 in the super chat. Thank you, Tom Allnott, $5 in the super chat. Funny how they need to do all that fact checking on important stories like we were waiting for, but with Russiagate, they just do it live. That is such a good point. That is such a good point. The good news, I'll tell you, Tom, is the fact checking they need to do is because, honestly, the story we have, and I think you're going to get it when it's out, that we were not overselling it and we were not overpromising it. The story we have that requires the fact checking has so many. It's not like one bombshell. It's like 7 or 8 bombs detonated in one story. And some might say, why don't you separate it into multiple stories? We probably are going to do a follow-up. But we've uncovered so much information that it, for editors and an outlet that haven't been following this particular topic like I have, I think you know the topic I'm talking about. For editors that haven't, they need to get up to speed and fact check it. I'm not telling you what the story is, but I think if you know my history and you know Status Quo's history, I think you can figure out what we're talking about here. So, Jordan is one thick daddy. I'm trying to lose weight, damn it. So, 345 people watching, 200 likes. We need over 150 more of you. Press that like button. So, Bernie, Bernard Sanders, he is now taking the lead in New Hampshire in the Real Clear Politics average, and in Iowa just slightly behind Buttigieg. So let's take a look at New Hampshire. He's taken the lead. Definitely margin of error, but that's the average of all polls. You see Warren really, really sliding. Gabbard almost at 6%. You also see in Iowa, Buttigieg up 3%, or actually less than 3%. Warren again in 4th place. Iowa, I take with a very big grain of salt, because you look at a primary caucus polls in Iowa. Listen, a caucus is not a primary. People need to go. They need to invest time and energy into caucusing. Whereas a primary is more of a straight shot. You go, you pull the lever, you leave, right? And I also think Iowa, look at 2016, it's just much more unpredictable. Hillary Clinton was super up in Iowa for the most part. She ended up winning by less than 0.1%. What is Jen sending me? If you want a teaser secret shot for the stream, oh, that's a good one. Let me see if I could show this. Jen just sent me a picture from where she is. Give me a second. I told you Jen, Status Coup co-founder, is in a top secret mission right now, and I have an image to show you where you're going to get to see a little bit where she is. We're doing some undercover reporting, shall we say. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, wonderful. It's sideways. Hold on. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'll fix it later. So, yeah, Jen is undercover right now at a very interesting, I shall say, event. And we hope to get some very tantalizing interviews. So I'll leave it at that. So the other thing with Bernie's momentum here, which I thought was interesting from this story, is, here we go. The campaign did not panic or make dramatic changes in messaging or strategy in the fall after Sanders suffered a heart attack. Instead, the campaign banked on Sanders' unwavering focus on economic issues and wealth inequality. The campaign believes the strategy is paying off in the stretch run to Iowa, leading to rising poll numbers. Quote, "No other candidate has as durable a base as we do," said Nina Turner. Quote, "So now he has an energized base, and we're starting to see his crossover appeal. We could enumerate that too. With 4 million donations and hundreds of thousands of volunteers, we have the receipts and we have the moral clarity from a senator who has stood on the right side of justice for over 40 years. Nationally, Sanders is back in the game, surpassing Warren after trailing her by double digits. The latest NPR PBS Marist National Survey released Sunday found Biden with the support of 24% of respondents, Sanders at 22%, and Warren at 17%. So you get the point. Honestly, right now, I think, and I said this yesterday, I think if the Iowa caucus were held today, it's really a 50-50 between Bernie and Pete Buttigieg. I think Joe Biden's campaign has basically waved the white flag already in Iowa. I think Elizabeth Warren, I mean, unless there is some magical moment she has in this debate, unless she suddenly comes out in January before the Iowa caucus and, quits faking it and just says, listen, I'm a capitalist I'm a capitalist warrior who wants to save capitalism, because she's trying to straddle the line and pretend to be a super progressive when she's not. I think Elizabeth Warren, her fatal mistake was having no conviction. And it shows in the numbers. The corporate media keeps talking about Elizabeth Warren's campaign is the most structured and well-organized campaign in Iowa. I mean, I don't really know. First of all, Bernie Sanders has way more volunteers than any other candidate, but I don't really know what that structure is going to do if nobody really knows what you stands for. Iowa voters are smart. Iowa voters take this seriously, and Iowa voters have basically met and heard from 3 or 4 Elizabeth Warrens, which we're going to get to in a little bit, because now she's starting with the choice talk. Maddie Perry, $4.99 in the super chat. If Bernie does win the nomination, corporate America will back Trump. You better believe it. So will a lot of Democrats back Trump. Corporate Democrats, that is. Jen is not in the status quo bunker. She's undercover, though. The greatest man ever. Do you still have that establishment cameraman? No, Joseph's not with us anymore. I'm trying out a new cameraman this week, so stay tuned for that. So what I find super, super interesting about all this, and I'd love to know your thoughts in the super chat, with Bernie, I think that he has had kind of, since 2016, an odds and evens kind of sequence. What I mean by that, in the debates, he's been fire in one debate and ice in the next debate. After his heart attack, he came out with fire breathing out. He was strong. He went after Biden multiple times. The next debate, not as much. A lot of people don't like when I criticize that, but it's a pattern. But the only way that Bernie Sanders could take it and elevate himself from right now, which right now, again, 50-50 in Iowa, I think. New Hampshire, if it were held today, I think Bernie would win. Iowa, it's just a 50-50. I mean, there's really no firm way to know whether it would be Bernie or Buttigieg. I don't think it's going to be Biden. I don't think it's going to be Warren. But I think Bernie has a major opportunity, maybe one of the most important debates that he's ever had. Because right now, he's kind of like, sorry if I'm mentioning something to you that you haven't seen it. He's kind of like Rocky after losing the first round. Rocky 1, he comes out of nowhere and he loses to Apollo Creed. And that second Rocky, he has the chance to actually take him out. And I think Bernie has an opportunity this Thursday to really, really surge into first place. And the way to do that is to not go after Pete Buttigieg, let other people go after Pete Buttigieg. I'm going to tell you some things today that I hope other people mention. He needs to go after Joe Biden, and he needs to go after Joe Biden on a lot more than Iraq. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty to discuss with Iraq. The Daily Beast, of all places, had a story that came out recently that was really good. But the bottom line is, Joe Biden right now is Bernie Sanders' biggest obstacle to winning, and there is so much to take him down on. And there is such a path to picking off, I would guess, 2 to 3% of Joe Biden's voters who are only making $50,000 or less and only have high school degrees. And the way to do that is to expose the fact, not only is this man not for unions, not only is this man not for working people, he has actively not just voted for things that decimated those, but he has actively pushed for policies that have decimated those. And Bernie Sanders, frankly, has not done a great job of exposing that during these debates. Sammy, £2 in the super chat. What happened with Joseph? Didn't work out. That's all I could say. I wish him well. Nothing sinister. It just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This is a startup. It just didn't work out. Okay. So he mentioned Joe Biden in terms of, oh, well, my good friend Joe here voted for the NAFTA, voted for the TPP. And I get it. He only has 40 seconds and whatever. But Bernie Sanders needs to explain in a very, very, in a soundbite. And I know that's against kind of what he stands for. He has to be able to communicate to the audience. Donald Trump is a danger in many different ways, but Joe Biden is not going to help close the income gap. Joe Biden is not going to help you get off that second job into one job. Joe Biden is not going to help you get expanded health care. Joe Biden is not going to improve your wallet because Joe Biden and his wing of the Democratic Party are in large part emboldening Donald Trump. He needs to go aggressively. He needs to mention, I mean, this was unbelievable to me. Barely anyone's mentioned it. This is Joe Biden at a fundraiser last week. Mr. Biden noted the elevated financial status of the supporters in the room several times. At one point, he repeated what he said at other fundraisers. Quote, by the way, if you elect me, most of you are not going to get a tax cut. Applause followed. He said that as longtime Delaware senator, he knew the state's wealthy DuPont family didn't need his help. And by the way, I never demonized them. I've never run one of these campaigns about these super populist campaigns. Well, let me give you a little story about DuPont. We got 515 people watching. 300 of you have pressed the like button. Can we get over 200 more of you? Press that like button. It makes a huge, huge difference in getting the numbers up. So, if you have the money, I mean, in New York City, seeing a movie is very expensive. If you have money, go see the new movie by Mark Ruffalo, Dark Waters. I just saw it yesterday. Honestly, it is infuriating. It is maddening. It is heartbreaking. And it also, in some weird way, gave me a little hope. Mark Ruffalo plays the corporate lawyer who basically goes from defending evil companies like DuPont to going after DuPont. And what DuPont did was knowingly poison hundreds of thousands of people in the Ohio River Valley for decades. And they covered it up. They took no steps to clean up their poison. They poisoned animals. They poisoned water. They poisoned humans. And Joe Biden is sitting there saying, I never demonized DuPont. Well, here's what Joe Biden is not saying, and he's letting the press in. But what Joe Biden, and I think Bernie Sanders needs to talk about this, it's not only whether you give them tax cuts or you don't give them tax cuts. It's about what are you doing other than taxes. Just because you might not give them a massive tax cut like Trump doesn't mean you're actually evening the playing field. You're still, as president, going to be giving bankers subsidies. You're still, as president, going to be giving healthcare companies subsidies. You're still, as president, going to be giving fossil fuel companies subsidies. Silicon Valley gets subsidies. Joe Biden is not going to change that. Joe Biden, as president, you think his Department of Justice, you think his EPA is going to regulate DuPonts of the world? By the way, people suddenly think that the EPA went rogue because of Trump. The EPA has been rogue way earlier than Trump. Maybe it's worse now. But the corporations regulate the regulating bodies. This has been happening under Joe Biden's Democratic Party, under Pete Buttigieg's Democratic Party. So, in their world, Joe Biden thinks he's saying something populist or progressive by saying, you're not going to get a tax cut from me. You want to know why they're laughing? You want to know why they're applauding? Because they don't care if they get a tax cut from Joe Biden, because they know they're still going to get the deregulation. They're still going to get the subsidies. There's not going to be attorney generals of the United States under Joe Biden going after these criminal bankers, just like they didn't go after him under President Obama. They're still going to be able to have all the leverage, the corporate CEOs at his fundraisers and Mayor Pete's, in crushing the unions, because Joe Biden's not a real union man. Just read about the Democratic Party's shift to the right over the last 30 years. They don't give a damn about the labor unions. It's like black people. They come to visit you during the primaries, during the election. They suddenly care about black issues. They come to the churches. They come to the labor halls. And then once elected, who the hell are you? Call my secretary. Anthony Reyes, Jordan, could you afford a studio in New York? Rent is expensive. It's AF in Manhattan. I'm actually currently hanging out at my parents' because I'm moving in with my lovely girlfriend, God willing, in March, if she doesn't kill me first. So because I've invested quite a few dollars of my own money into Status Coup, I need to save money because I've spent a lot of money into Status Coup. In the beginning of Status Coup, before there was membership, hint, hint, sign up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. This is how we fund our reporting. This is how we fund trips like me going to South Bend this week to show the real Pete Buttigieg. This is how we fund Marcus, who's going to cover Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez this weekend in Las Vegas and California. This is how we fund Marcus in Iowa. We're sending him to Iowa after Christmas for several weeks to cover the caucus. This is how we fund me in New Hampshire. I will be going there soon. This is how we fund Jen, who is currently undercover at an event right now that I think you're going to like. This is how we cover in the field and show you what's really going on. Hey, if you don't got $5 to $10 a month, we get it, no problem. If you do, spend it on real in-the-field journalism. Because unlike others who ask you to give them money per month and then don't do a damn thing, we have the map. This is where we've been in the last year and a half with not a ton of resources. So, what I say to, yes, DuPont is also responsible for Gen X in Cape Fear, North Carolina. Princess Queen, $2. You want to know how I know that? When I was at the Young Turks, I went to cover on the ground, if you remember that story, in Cape Fear, North Carolina. And by the way, what DuPont has unleashed is called PFOA or C8. It's spreading all over the country. And most people don't know about it because the corporate media, Russia is a bigger threat than our water being contaminated. So that's what's going on. Definitely try to see that movie. So, did I miss another super chat? Pal 9000, 10.99 pounds. Keep fighting the good fight. Love from Ireland. Love you too. I've always wanted to go to Ireland too. I hear it's a beautiful, beautiful country. So, what I say to Bernie, I think Bernie Sanders needs to realize that basically you got two debates before Iowa, and you have people who are not sold on Joe Biden. Another thing Bernie Sanders needs to realize is, and I've been saying this for months, let's just call it what it is. Joe Biden is not cognitively sharp. I think Joe Biden is cognitively declining. Others have said worse. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to diagnose him. Joe Biden cannot sustain consistent, sustained attacks over 2.5, 3 hours. Joe Biden cannot defend his record. And if Bernie Sanders goes on the attack beyond Iraq, if Bernie Sanders goes into the bankruptcy bill, goes into specific things that Joe Biden voted for and pushed that hurt union workers, that have hurt the working class, he's not going to be able to defend himself. Look when Kamala Harris went after him in the first debate. Joe Biden was a stumbling, mumbling moron. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris didn't stand for anything, so she couldn't capitalize on it. This is the truth. This is the truth. So, I hope that Bernie Sanders, yes, don't get me wrong, his campaign is obviously doing things. They're doing good things if he's moving up like this. But do not rest on your laurels. He needs to go on the attack. A lot of you have said, oh, Jordan, he's waiting till the field gets narrow until he, goes on the attack. Well, you're going to have seven candidates on the stage. According to them, they're all protesting if the thing doesn't get moved because there's a labor dispute and a picket line going on. As of right now, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I've heard nothing otherwise. I don't know if they're moving it or whatever, but I'm pretty sure the debate's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen there or elsewhere, but the bottom line is this is the most time Bernie Sanders will have to speak. And if the moderators, PBS and Politico, are not going to allow him to speak, then Bernie Sanders needs to get the hell in there. He needs to, in his mind, be debating Joe Biden and nobody else. Elizabeth Warren, to me, and I'm about to get to more of her political stupidity. Elizabeth Warren, he doesn't need to go after Elizabeth Warren. She's fading. Pete Buttigieg, I think everybody else is going to go after Pete Buttigieg. Bernie, take off the gloves. Take off the gloves against Biden. Not just Iraq. I want NAFTA. I want TPP. I want the bankruptcy bill. I want the Patriot Act. I want deregulating derivatives. And that's just for starters. I will be very, very disappointed if Bernie Sanders goes easy on Joe Biden. Because, Bernie, if you're watching, we don't care that Joe Biden is a good friend of yours. He's not a good friend of the working man or woman. And with that, I move on. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I just got a picture from Jen. Let's see if I can show you this. Oh, no, we don't want that. Hold on. Hold on. Jen DNC. Image. 2020. Trying to put this image in so you could see. No. Where did it go? You love this production. Here we go. Become a member and find out. Become a member, find out Jen's secret mission. Where is she? What is she doing? Oh boy, I'm intrigued. What is Jen doing now? Woo! Do I know who that is? Where can Jen be? What shenanigans is she doing? Oh boy. I see a lot of wealthy white people. Oh boy. Is Jen undercover as Tom Perez? Sure, I hope not. I don't know. Don't worry. We haven't sold out. We're not at the DNC's Christmas party. But Jen is currently undercover. Oh, we just got a new member. Welcome to the party. Ide. New status Coup member Ide. What a lovely name. 744 members now. We need more of you to sign up so we can do more stuff like this. Statuscoup.com/join. Trust me, Jen is not there to take pictures of Tom Perez. So stay tuned for that. So I want to move on to Elizabeth Warren, who frankly is starting to bore me a little bit. It's so predictable. I don't know who is advising Elizabeth Warren. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know if her campaign is trying a new strategy of doing things they know are going to help them lose. I just don't get it. But now Elizabeth Warren, it moved from I'm with Bernie to I'm going to do a public option and then fight for Medicare for all in year 3, which was obviously ridiculous, to now choice. We're going to emphasize choice. So Elizabeth Warren has been using new notable language at her town halls to describe the transition in Medicare for all, saying under her plan, it would be a voter's choice to opt in. While the language is already a part of her transition proposal, it's a noticeable rhetorical shift on Warren's part after her moderate Democrat rivals, namely Pete Buttigieg, have criticized her plan that would eventually eliminate private insurance. For the last 2 weeks, Warren has described the transition in her Medicare for All plan as a choice for Americans to try. A new Fox poll released Sunday showed that support for government-run health care has dropped by double digits among Democrats since October. That's okay, I read a different poll that says 62% support Medicare for All. But they'll cherry-pick the polls that they want to cherry-pick, and support usually falls when you have a concerted corporate media propaganda campaign against Medicare for All. During a stop in Coup, Iowa on Monday morning, 54-year-old Camille Anderson told Warren she was a fan of her Medicare for All plan, but I keep hearing from people who are afraid, A, of the cost, and B, that they're not going to be able to get the care they need or see a doctor that they want with your plan. Is there something you could say to alleviate the concerns and their fears? After a lengthy explanation of how her plan would work, the Massachusetts senator emphasized to Anderson that she believes Americans will embrace it once they see it in action. Let's let people try it. Find out what it feels like to be making healthcare decisions just between you and your medical professional to get the prescription drugs you need without having to worry about how big the copay is going to be and whether or not you're going to be able to get the prescription filled and still have enough money left over to buy the groceries this week. When tens of millions of people have had a chance to try that, I believe at that point we're going to be ready to vote for Medicare for everyone. For somebody who has plans for everything, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And it's one of the most naive things I've ever heard. So, Jen has been Tom Perez the whole time. First of all, what she's describing is essentially a public option buy-in, which is a premium. So you have to buy in to a public option. She's calling it Medicare, but you're buying in to a public option. But because Elizabeth Warren's plan will maintain private health insurance, that public option is going to have a hard time keeping costs down because the government option, which she's calling Medicare, but it's really just a public option, is not going to have the monopoly over it like it would in Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. So she's talking about that people will smell the roses. They'll get into her Medicare plan, which, again, is not Medicare. It's a public option that is going to have a hard time controlling the cost because you still have private insurance gouging prices. And the government will have to compete with private health insurance. So I don't know what she's describing here. It's not Medicare. It's a public option, which maybe 10 to 15 years ago was more palatable, but you've seen the stories. Private health insurance costs are soaring. A story I read today, it's up 20% from last year. So I don't get what is the choice. People would need to be able to afford the premium to buy into the public option. Not everyone could do that. And then when they're in the public option, the prices are not, it's not going to be as expansive of options for doctors because you're going to still have a vibrant private health insurance industry. By the way, you're also, unless something radically changes, going to have a Republican-controlled Senate who's going to try and sabotage your public option in the first place. So I really don't know what she's talking about. And Wendell Potter, who, by the way, I've tried to reach out a couple times. He's expressed interest in doing an interview. Wendell Potter, if you don't know, is basically like a private healthcare whistleblower. He used to work for the health insurance industry, and since then he's been trying to, in his words, atone for the terrible, terrible things he and other private health insurance people have done. So he basically exposed this today. I want to read you this thread. Lately, I've noticed some Democratic politicians defending the current healthcare system by saying it preserves choice for Americans. This is what Elizabeth Warren is talking about now. As a former health insurance exec who helped draft this talking point, I need to come clean on its backstory and why it's wrong and a trap. When I worked in the insurance industry, we were instructed to talk about choice based on focus groups and people like Frank Luntz, who was a Republican pollster spawned out of Fox News. He's a terrible person. I used it all the time as an industry flack, but there was a problem. As a health insurance PR guy, we knew one of the huge vulnerabilities of the current system was a lack of choice. In the current system, you can't pick your own doctor, specialist, or hospital without huge out-of-network bills. So we set out to muddy the issue of choice. As industry insiders, we also knew most Americans have very little choice of their plan. Your company chooses an insurance provider, and you get to pick from a few different plans offered by that one insurer, usually either a high deductible plan or a higher deductible plan. Another problem insurers like mine had on the choice issue: people with employer-based plans have very little choice to keep it. You could lose it if your company changes it, or you change jobs, or turn 26, or many other ways. This is a problem for defenders of the status quo. Knowing we were losing the choice argument, my pals in the insurance industry spent millions on lobbying, ads, and spin doctors, all designed to gaslight Americans into thinking that reforming the status quo would somehow give them less choice. An industry front group launched the campaign to achieve this very purpose. Its name, My Care, My Choice. Its job, trick Americans into thinking they currently can choose any plan they want and that their plan allows them to see any doctor. They've spent big in Iowa. This isn't the first time the industry made choice a big talking point in its scheme to fight health reform. Soon after Obamacare was passed, it created a front group called the Choice and Competition Coalition to scare states away from creating exchanges with better plans. The difference is, this time the Democrats are the ones parroting this misleading choice talking point. And they even using it as a weapon against each other. Back in my insurance PR days, this would have stunned me. I bet my old colleagues are thrilled and celebrating. The truth, of course, is you have little choice in healthcare now. Most can't keep their plan as long as they want it, or visit any doctor or hospital. Some reforms, like Medicare for All, would let you. In other words, Medicare for All actually offers more choice than the status quo. So, if a politician tells you they oppose reforming the current system because they want to preserve choice, either they don't know what they're talking about or they're willfully ignoring the truth. I assure you the insurance industry is delighted either way. I'd like that guy on television speaking on behalf of Bernie's Medicare for All plan. What could be better? Elizabeth Warren, honestly, for, some people at my old stomping grounds, TYT, I really don't know how people with a straight face say she's progressive. She might be progressive-minded on some things. I think she genuinely has disdain for the big banks. I think she genuinely feels we need tighter regulation of economic markets. I think she genuinely thinks the system is rigged. But either she's ignorant on the fact that those very banks are the ones pushing against Medicare for All, or I don't know, but this is not progressive language she is using. This is not progressive language Elizabeth Warren is using on healthcare. And frankly, I would have respected her more if she would have just come out from the beginning and say, I think we need to slowly build up to Medicare for All, and I'm going to do a public option. I don't agree with her, but at least there's some intellectual honesty in that position. She was never for Medicare for All. And frankly, I think more and more people, and it's not just Democrats, Republicans too, are seeing it's not that we can't have a universal healthcare system. These tired arguments, we're not Denmark, we're a bigger country, this and that, are irrelevant. People are waking up. And unfortunately, Elizabeth Warren is listening to the same exact losers that were in Hillary Clinton's ear, that are in Joe Biden's ear, that were in Democratic congressional candidates and Senate candidates for the last 10 years. And that is why she's sliding. For no other reason than she does not have the courage of her convictions. I don't think she's a bad person. Some of you disagree, but I'm not listen, we can't afford another 4 years of Donald Trump. I would personally deal with her if she was the nominee and vote for her, but I don't think it's going to come to that. I don't think she's as bad as Biden. I don't think she's as bad as Pete. But that's not an endorsement. You need to be better than this, Elizabeth Warren. You're a smart woman. You know what you're saying is false. So, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Can't doctors opt out of Medicare for All in Bernie's plan? Great question, Catherine. The thing is, there would be no private health insurance industry. There would be no middleman in Medicare for All. So doctors, rather than you being prisoner to the private health insurance industries, the doctors, they don't have anywhere else to go. Sure, if you're a super wealthy doctor in Park Avenue, you don't have to participate. You could just do cash deals with wealthy people who want to come to you. That's okay. That they have that in Canada and other places. That's just doctors who do private deals. But it's not a system of, 7, 10 to 20 private health insurance companies. So doctors wouldn't have incentive. Most doctors would not have an incentive to opt out on Medicare for All because that's where all the customers are. If you don't have a private health insurance industry, the customers are all in Medicare. So doctors, there would not be a huge number of doctors who opt not to participate. That's just true. So, if my girlfriend's watching, hopefully she's listening to this about Elizabeth Warren. Love you though. Love you. So, by the way, we got 650 people watching, 500 likes. Can I get 150 more likes? It would make me feel really good as a person. We need to boost the likes. Somebody sent me a scathing email. Sam Cedar doesn't beg for likes. This person doesn't beg for likes. I'm not asking for likes because I feel sad about myself. I'm asking for likes because YouTube's fakakta algorithm, which I'm about to get to YouTube in a minute, YouTube's algorithm only lifts channels into people's feeds that don't see it based on how many likes you have and how many comments you have. So if you've seen, as we've gotten more likes, the audience number has gone up. So that's why I ask you to like the video. So, moving on from Elizabeth Warren, this is a super chat, by the way, so keep it coming. And if you came to this late, we are going to South Bend, Indiana this week, so I'm excited about that. I am going to be in South Bend, I think, on Wednesday, and for a few days, introducing you to the real Pete Buttigieg, because all the corporate reporters that have been there in South Bend have managed to miss the fact that, as one person that I spoke with today, this is literally a quote from a pastor I spoke to in South Bend. Have you ever seen The Hunger Games? The best way I can describe this, if you've seen the movie Hunger Games, that's what this is. Talking about Pete Buttigieg and the South Bend economy he's created. He says, we have people with frostbite coming into our church because Pete Buttigieg has not insured shelter for the homeless during the day in South Bend, Indiana, in frigid conditions. He said, yeah, race plays a role in this. My church caters to the homeless and veterans, and from what we've seen, he just doesn't care. This is a pastor telling me this, and I've spoken with others today, and we're going to be interviewing them when I get there on the ground. So stay tuned for that. So I want to move on to YouTube, and this, honestly, it's a little risky to even bring this up on YouTube. Hopefully, there's not humans throttling and watching this channel right now at YouTube. But to me, this is much bigger than YouTube. This is about an information war that is going on in the United Corporations of America. And if we don't all wake up and figure out another way, we're going to lose the war. Obviously, what I'm about to talk about affects status quo and whether we could have a sustainable business. I'm going to be honest about that. But it's broader than status quo. Kyle Kalinske did a video on this, but I definitely have some thoughts myself too. So, YouTube recently came out earlier this month with, the birds and the bees, the 4 R's of responsibility, raising authoritative content and reducing borderline content and harmful misinformation. So, apparently, authoritative news is thriving on our site, whatever that means. Since January 2019, we've launched over 30 different changes to reduce recommendations of borderline content and harmful misinformation. The result is a 70% average drop in watch time of this content coming from non-subscribed recommendations in the U.S. So let me kind of explain what this means before I go further in depth. Before YouTube decided who was the authoritative voices and channels and who was borderline, I started at the Young Turks in January 2016. The channel that I started there, it was called TYT Politics. When I got there, it had 2,000 subscribers, from what I recall. This was at a time when there was no YouTube throttling and suppression, and YouTube was still kind of an open place. To tell you the truth, I didn't really have much support from TYT as far as marketing the channel. Once in a blue moon, they would feature a video on the main show, but overall, I didn't, it was just a normal channel, right? Maybe the fact that it was at TYT helped a little bit in terms of like the algorithm, but I don't really think by much, because at first the growth wasn't that quick. But in 11 months, not a year, 11 months, we went from 2,000 subscribers to 140,000, okay? Doing pretty much exactly the same thing I'm doing at Status Coup, and we're doing at Status Coup. Granted, I had more resources to travel while at the Young Turks. Now that it's, my own company with Jen, we have to build those resources, so we haven't traveled as much, but we've traveled a good amount. I mean, we've been, look at the map. We've been all over this country in a year and a half. We've been to Canada too. We're continuing to travel. We've done it through GoFundMe. We've done it through membership, which is why I keep pushing membership. We are doing it the old school way. We're not taking corporate sponsorships. We're not taking fat cat investors. We are trying to grow paid, small dollar paid memberships. So when you look at this, you say, well, how is it that in less than a year with the same exact content, actually since then, Status Quo has kind of doubled down on what I did at TYT. How is it that we're growing at a snail's pace? How is it that even when we go up in subscribers, we go down in views? How is it that some weeks we get really significantly high views, and then the next week we have videos that have been up for hours with like 50 views? How is it that I look at charts in our analytics behind the scenes, and some months we're literally growing like 10 new subscribers a day? How is that possible? Did people suddenly just like stop liking me? And by the way, it's not me. It's me, Jen, Marcus. We've had other voices on the channel. Obviously, if something's going wrong with your content, you can tweak it, change it, and hopefully go better. But how is it that we're basically growing at a snail's pace? And I always knew the answer. It's because we're not recommended at all, really. I've asked people that I don't know I've asked people that I know but aren't into politics, have you ever seen my channel on YouTube? They said, you have a channel? When I go on Jimmy Dore's show, he's been nice enough to have me on several times. We usually get a 2,000 to 3,000 subscriber jump, and the comments start flooding in. Jordan, we didn't know you were back. I've been back for like a year and a half now. People don't see this content. So it's frustrating because you could work 7 days a week. You could even make the right choices as far as like picking certain stories you want to go out on in certain parts of the country. But if you're at the mercy of an outlet that is essentially, through their algorithm, deciding your borderline, and CNN and Fox News are authoritative. Yeah, I'm not stuttering. Look at this. More and more people turn to YouTube to catch up on the latest news or simply learn more about the topics they're curious about, whether it's climate change or a natural disaster. For topics like music and entertainment, relevance, newsness, and popularity are most helpful to understand what people are interested in. But for subjects such as news, science, and historical events, where accuracy and authoritativeness are key, the quality of information and context matter most, much more than engagement. in 2017, we started to prioritize authoritative voices, including news sources like CNN, who, by the way, if you recall, for I think 4 months was going on and on about a missing plane where one of its anchors said maybe aliens swallowed the plane, who's been pushing this Russiagate nonsense for 3.5 years, including such authoritative voices like Fox News, who gave us the new Black Panthers, who gave us the birther movement, who gave us Benghazi, who gave us fill in the blank on the absurdity that is Fox News on a day-to-day basis, who gave us the Obama terrorist fist jab. The Guardian, which frankly, I mean, I don't live in the UK, but fairly pro Boris Johnson, if you ask me. Not a friend of Julian Assange. Have had some factual errors too recently. So wait a minute. Authoritative news is CNN and Fox News? Are you kidding me? And by the way, who the fuck is YouTube to decide who's authoritative news and who's borderline? Isn't the point of YouTube for it to be you creating, you deciding? But the truth is, authoritative voices, what that really means is voices that our corporate advertisers think are credible. Authoritative means who our corporate advertisers don't have to worry about. Who our corporate advertisers can go to sleep at night and know we're in good hands. The status quo is in good hands. And by the way, YouTube, if you've noticed, has basically been trying to become a TV channel over the last 2 years. YouTube TV. So they couldn't have that borderline content harming their ability to basically become a television channel. So some might say, well, boo fucking who, Jordan? It's a private company and go somewhere else. Well, if YouTube, owned by Google, by the way, has essentially the monopoly on independent broadcasting, right? Non-corporate broadcasting, meaning individuals who are not corporately funded entities. You know, Comcast owns NBC. AT&T owns CNN. Then shouldn't it be publicly regulated as a utility? Why is it that YouTube gets to hide Status Coup and other channels in a cave while propping up CNN? People, if they want CNN, traditionally went to CNN, not YouTube. CNN videos used to get like 1,000 to 2,000 views. Now they're getting hundreds of thousands of views. Do you think that's because people suddenly like Wolf Blitzer? It is unbelievable. By the way, let's look at the borderline content. Content that comes close to but doesn't quite cross the line of violating our guidelines is a fraction of 1% of what's watched on YouTube. To give a quick comparison, meditation videos have more daily watch time than borderline and harmful misinformation. That said, even a fraction of a percent is too much. So this past January, we announced we'd begin reducing recommendations of borderline content or videos that could misinform users in harmful ways. Well, how are you determining what is harmful or misinformation? I promise you, Aaron Maté and the Gray Zone doing videos on the organization on the prohibition of chemical weapons, doing videos on essentially whistleblower after whistleblower after whistleblower from the OPCW saying, The OPCW basically buried dissenting voices that there wasn't a chemical attack in Doma, Syria last year, in Syria, that the media then pushed Trump to drop bombs in Syria. I promise you, I think that's the borderline content they're talking about. And by the way, for those of you who think this is just me like complaining because status quo is growing too slow or this and that, this is much deeper than status quo, right? It's not just status quo who suffers the consequences or other independent channels. It's communities. When YouTube hides and decides that channels without makeup wearing old white men with suits paid for by AT&T or Comcast, when YouTube decides that those voices are controversial or borderline, well, a lot of those voices are covering the Flint water crisis or fights against pipelines or voter suppression or voter purges or illegal corruption in America and around the world or war crimes. It's the communities. It's the communities that suffer because they're not getting their stories shown. It's the Flints and the Standing Rocks and the other places. By the way, in 2016, when I was at Standing Rock, that was before Facebook changed its algorithm to suppress independent news. What would Standing Rock have been or not been if it happened a year later? Trust me, it would not be getting tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of views on Facebook if it happened in 2017 or 2018. There's real world consequences. It's not just that like me ranting doesn't get seen. It's reporting on Flint, reporting at Standing Rock, showing the police working with corporations to literally beat the living hell out of Native Americans and environmental activists. It's showing that a community of poor black people and poor white people don't have water, now going into a second decade. Clean water. It also makes it so, and this is a big reason they're doing it, that you can't earn a living. Again, obviously I need to eat. Jen needs to eat. But, you know, status quo has had to kind of like start and stop. You get a little bit of momentum. Like we had major momentum after the first debate in Miami. But then that momentum gets stopped because YouTube's algorithm keeps screwing with us. And it stops us from being able to go out on the campaign trail the amount we want. It stops us from being able to expand because we're not going to sell out and just get a big Democratic Party donor to fund us, because then we wouldn't be who we are. Bobby Miller, sorry, don't expect me to continue watching when you provide zero data to back up your assertion. I mean, I don't know what data you're requiring. YouTube just told you what they're doing. I just showed you YouTube openly acknowledging they are deprioritizing borderline content. I mean, I could show you tomorrow if you want. Literally, we fell off a cliff. We grew 6,000 subscribers in 2 weeks. Right after I did a video criticizing YouTube, we fell off a cliff. That is called censorship. That is called corporate censorship. So I have been calling for a while, and I'm going to call for it again. I think that independent journalists, whether they're commentators, whether they're reporters who go out in different locations in the country, technical people, because you can't have any of this without people who know how to create it, technically. We need to come together and create our own thing. It doesn't mean that, obviously the Kyle Kalinskis of the world and the Jimmy Dores who have been working to create, whatever they have, 700-something thousand subscribers. Jimmy, I think, has close to that. I'm not saying just like, poof, go away. But I personally think the trajectory of YouTube, and they're openly admitting it, I don't think we're going to be able to actually be on YouTube in the next 2 to 3 years. I really don't. It does not make sense to spend your money, meaning your money, you guys as members are funding Status Coup. This is our model. We do not want to be reliant on YouTube clicks or YouTube money. It doesn't make any sense to spend the money for me and a camera person to go to South Bend or New Hampshire or wherever if the main broadcast platform we're putting it up on, we don't know if the content is going to get a fair shake. All we're asking is for a fair shake. If our content on the merits is shown algorithmically, it has the same chance as a CNN video to show up as recommended or show up in people's feeds, I have zero doubt in my mind we will win. I think I agree with Steph. It's a great thing that there's a lot of different independent voices with their own entities. But those independent voices are getting slowly silenced. That's what's happening. And like the Jimmy channels of the world, he's experiencing it too. Not to this degree, because he fortunately had a couple years to grow before this algorithmic. They changed their algorithm and stuff like that. We haven't had that luxury. We launched this right after they did that. But I think there's a way for all of us to come together on one platform, still have our own individual identities, still have our own individual members, patrons, whatever. Be able to go in our own time slots, be able to do crossovers with each other. To me, that is the ideal situation because I do not see a scenario. If it keeps going this way, eventually that borderline content is going to be YouTube purging channels. That's the truth. So I hope, whether it's Status Coup and signing up as a member, which is the best way to support us. Again, we're trying to offer something different. We're trying to actually go out in the field and give the microphone back to actual people. We are trying to interview as many people as we can around the country, from South Bend to Flint to Seattle, where we interviewed homeless people on what Amazon's doing there. We're trying to give the microphone back to people that will never be featured in corporate outlets, will never be on CNN or MSNBC. So we hope the reason we're trying to grow that membership, we're at 744 now, is very simple. If it becomes basically not sustainable business-wise, dollars and cents to be on YouTube, if we have a vibrant membership, then we could build our own platform. We'll go live on our own site. We'll have the money to actually advertise that, market people to our own site, do our own notifications, build our text list, build our email list. That's what we want to do. So I hope you realize when I'm talking about this YouTube stuff, yes, of course, like it's about Status Coup, but it's about all of us because it's not only going to affect Status Coup. Eventually, it is very hard. You could talk to Jamal Thomas. You could talk to Kyle Kalinske. It's not a 9 to 5 doing this. It's all day, a lot of weekend work. But if it comes to a point where it doesn't matter whether your content's good or not, it's getting hidden into a cave or not seen, it comes to a point you can't do it anymore. And that's what they're trying to accomplish. So I hope there is a lot of smart people in the progressive movement. Somebody could come up. Somebody could come up with a way to, yes, keep our individual identities, but we are strong. I don't want to sound like Hillary Clinton. We're stronger together. We're stronger together than we are apart. That's what I believe. Thank you, Habaristra, $2 in the super chat. Thank you, Gary Curtis, $10. I appreciate you and your team's hard work. Thank you. Mike Thompson, $2. Thank you. Not provided, $5. How hypocritical is America to accuse China of internet censorship? Honestly, the censorship going on in America is unbelievable right now. This is fascist levels. You want to say I'm being dramatic? So be it. But this is fascism. And by the way, YouTube for years has been saying, you're a conspiracy theorist. We're not doing anything to prop up some and knock down others. Well, they just openly admitted they're prioritizing CNN and Fox News as trustful voices while screwing borderline voices. What do you think that means? Bobby Miller, $2. Where's your data, Rachel Maddow? You calling me Rachel Maddow? I don't appreciate that. I mean, I don't really get what data you're talking about. I just showed you they're admitting it. The data is, look at my subscribers. I mean, I'm not saying 66,000 is nothing, but for the same exact content, I grew before this algorithm change to 140,000 in less than a year. 66,000 in a year and a half. Growing at half the rate I was growing, doing the same exact content. Either suddenly people don't want in the field reporting, or a lot less people are seeing the content. Mac SYN. While I understand and appreciate your honesty about not being able to cover jank, can somebody else at Status Coup cover the smear campaign? It's bigger than jank. It's about progressive candidates. I covered it. I talked about it for the last 2 days. I mean, I don't know what you mean. You might not like what I had to say, but we did cover it. So I don't really want to relitigate it and say the same thing I did for the last 2 days. Chris Wynn, Jordan, I'm a progressive software developer. I'd love to help you if you ever grow your budget enough. Email info@statuscoup.com. Send me your resume and we'll definitely talk. I appreciate that, Chris. info@statuscoup.com. Jordan, I totally believe you and truly commend you for your hard work and perseverance. Thank you. It's not just me. It's Jen. It's Colin. It's Marcus. It's not just me, but thank you very much. Yeah, I don't really want to keep talking about the jank issue. I've talked about it for 2 days. So, anyway, with that, that's all I got today. I'm going to spend the rest of the night and tomorrow setting up interviews. We're going to South Bend, Indiana. I think it's time to show you who the real Pete Buttigieg is. And some of you might say, focus on Joe Biden. Don't worry. We got some things on that front coming up too. But, I mean, the bottom line is Pete Buttigieg is a real threat. It's sad to say, but people in Iowa are buying this. People in New Hampshire are buying this. So I think there's been good stories, but we need people on the ground in South Bend interviewing the community activists, the pastors, the local officials that will say what I've been hearing all day. I've spoken with 3 people. The guy is a fraud. The guy has literally sold the city to developers. It is the economic Hunger Games, a pastor told me before I went live. Why has none of this been shown? Honorable Enterprises. I see other channels' notification and not yours. I didn't even get into the notifications. I'm lucky if you get a notification the next year when I was live the year before. So for the 500 people watching, listen, I'm asking you, I'm not going to beg, but I'll come close. I just put it in the super chat. If you have $5 to $10 a month, this is how we grow this thing. This is how we keep Status Coup going. We have the will. We have the way. We need to grow our small dollar engine. We're also having our final members call. I think next week we're going to do it. So you get to join us for the members call. If you're a member, we have other content we're going to do just for you guys coming up. So if you got $5 to $10 a month, definitely join us. If you don't, we get it. No problem. Keep watching, sharing, liking. My girlfriend and not. I haven't gotten a notification for a week. This is what I'm saying. We want to thrive or fail on the merits of our content. That's it. I don't think that's a lot to ask. And by the way, I don't know if it works or not, but they say subscribe and click the bell. Next to subscribe, click the bell and say you want all notifications. But I know a lot of people have done that and are still not getting full notifications. So anyway, before I go, let me read a couple comments, questions, concerns. Appreciate the super chats. Biden will implode by himself. No help needed. I don't know about that, man. If you noticed in 2016, there's a lot of old African Americans very comfortable with weak candidates. So I don't know if he's going to implode. That's why I think Bernie needs to really take it to him. Mac SYN, yeah, I missed your notification, so I apologize if you covered the Gen G story. I really aren't seeing your notifications. I come to Status Coup on my own. I don't know who Gen G is, so you'll have to explain who Gen G is. Jordan, I knew BitChute has a lot of right-wing stuff on, but honestly, that's what happens when you have an open platform, and I think you could create a mirror channel. We're really trying to work right now on Twitch. We also might consider Vimeo also. So BitChute, I don't know enough about, but we are working on Twitch and possibly Vimeo. I rather go to Iowa. I could tell them about Pete. Seems like most on social media already know about him. No. By the way, Marcus is going to Iowa for us right after Christmas for several weeks, so we are going to be in Iowa. Like I said, Status Coup, I've always said it's not going to just be me. We're going to have other reporters, so we're going to have Marcus in Iowa covering rallies, speaking with voters, investigating, those kinds of things. But I think what's needed right now is to be on the ground and speak to residents of South Bend and get that on video, personally. But I'll be in Iowa at some point too, so don't you worry. Merits are demerit on YouTube. Kick booty judge in the booty. Protest now. CNN, MSNBC. I give $20 a month and it's worth it. Thank you, Peace Walker. I really appreciate that for your support. Generation G, boot judge, Peace Walker. Can't stop fighting dollars with dollars. Our own Green Party. Jenk. Oh. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying this because of any bitter will or because of what happened with me and TYT, but the bottom line is, like, Jenk's running for public office. He made comments that were not good. A lot of the comments, people online are other voices are talking about comments he made 20 years ago. There's also pretty bad comments he made like 2 or 3 years ago. So it's I'm not saying like somebody should be disqualified for terrible comments they made, because a lot of people wouldn't be able to run for public office then. But my point is, like, calling it a smear to bring up comments he actually made, specifically in the last 2 or 3 years, like, these same voices online that are claiming he's being smeared, if it was a Republican candidate who made these comments in the last 2 to 3 years, I'm not talking about the ones 20 years ago, then they'd be screaming bloody murder. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, irrelevant of Jenk, I'd be saying this if it was Kyle, if it was Jimmy, whatever. Like, you got to own what you've said, especially if you're running for office. Like, I don't think it's a smear for that to be brought up. As far as Bernie retracting the endorsement or whatever, I don't think he should have endorsed him in the first place. Not because I don't like Jenk, but because you're surging right now. I started the show today. He's leading in New Hampshire right now on the average of Real Clear Politics. He is in a close second in Iowa. And I don't buy most of the polling in Iowa. It's really up in the air. Polling in Iowa is very hard because it's a caucus system. He's moved up to 7 points down in South Carolina. That is an enormous jump. Biden was up by like 20 points in most polls. So, like, you want to be progressively pure? Okay. But my point is, do you really want Bernie Sanders, while he's fighting to the deaths, to win Iowa and win New Hampshire and possibly Nevada? Do you want him being pressed in every press conference, every speech on the debate stage about Jenk? Like, I think Jenk himself has said, I don't want to hurt his campaign. So, to me, like, he's a big boy. Bernie retracting his statement, like, Jenk will win or lose. But, like, I don't think it's unfair that if you're running for public office and you've made comments both several decades, like 2 decades ago, but also the stories I read brought up comments he made in 2016, 2017. So it's like, I don't quite understand why that's a smear. He's obviously painting it as they're smearing me. But they, honestly, I like intellectual consistency, and these people would be screaming if it was a Republican candidate who made these comments. But because it's a progressive one, they're saying it's a smear. So, you're the only one being progressively pure. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I think that if somebody's been a commentator for 20 years and they've made comments that are pushing the envelope or demeaning of women, what are we supposed to say to that? Like, oh, it's not fair game? Oh, they shouldn't bring it up? I think that's ridiculous. I don't think it should disqualify him. He should be able to run. But he needs to defend it, and he is. Taking it out of context will make it look like a smear. Honestly, I haven't watched a lot of TYT recently, but, you know, it's not enough just to say they're taking it out of context. He needs to explain why it's taken out of context. It's up to him. My whole point in this was not to defend or not defend Cenk. It's, I don't think right now Bernie Sanders needs to be... The corporate media will look for anything. If Bernie Sanders... I don't know. If Bernie Sanders goes near a dog and they bark at him, the media is going to say Bernie Sanders not animal friendly. So I don't think Bernie Sanders, in the final stretch to the Iowa caucus, needs this aggravation and needs this distraction. So that's what I think. Anyway, I'll read a couple more. Seth Peterson, $25 in the super chat. Look forward to your reporting. You and Emma Vigeland are the only progressives doing in the field reporting. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, she goes out in the field too sometimes. So and honestly, support like this helps us because it's not just me. We're funding Jen. We're funding Colin. We're funding Marcus. It costs money. Not to mention the flights, hotels, rent a car. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Honorable Enterprises, thank you, $5. I'll support you wherever you go. Thank you. Thanks for the generous... Oh, he has explained and apologized numerous times already over many years. Dean Walker. But that's my point, Dean Walker. Like, it's not a smear if he said it. Like, he's running for office, so he needs to defend it. I don't understand these people saying it's a smear. He's made the comments. So, like what they did to him in that David Duke segment where they said that he said something in favor of David Duke when it clearly wasn't, that's a smear. The New York Times smeared him. But, like, these people who, frankly, are snowflakes saying he's being smeared, no, he made comments 20 years ago and several in the last few years. So, because you like him, because you like his politics, that's a smear? You would not be saying this if it was a Republican or a neoliberal Democrat. So I'm for intellectual honesty. I'm not saying it should, and consistency. I'm not saying it should disqualify him. He should run, and he could defend it. But like these people saying it smears and blah blah blah, like get the fuck out of here. It smears if he didn't say it. And honestly, context is in the eye of the beholder. Right? So Cenk is going to say you're taking me out of context. So Jayev, he deleted those blog posts 15 years ago, but this is what I'm talking about. A lot of people are only focused on those blog posts. A lot of these stories are mentioning things that were said in recent years, not 20 years ago. So, like, again, yes, people could make comments 20 years ago, and it's up to the voters to decide if those are disqualifying or not. To me, the real concern, the real issue for him, to me, is not the 20 years ago, it's the recent. But he knew that. He knew that when he was running. He's not a stupid person. He knew this was going to come up. So to me, it's like, honestly, as much as I love my brothers and sisters in the progressive movement, particularly in the media, I think sometimes there's a little bit of just team progressive rather than intellectual consistency. And I'm not like attacking any one host or anything like that at all. But like the bottom line is, be consistent. And to me, there's two separate things. Somebody could be being smeared, which is not okay, or somebody says, apologize, says they are a different person, and do you want to move on from that? To me, the second thing is a legitimate thing. He apologized, and he could defend it, and it shouldn't be what the entire campaign is about. He has to answer for it in interviews and debates, but that's for him to do. It shouldn't disqualify him from running. That I agree with. But to say someone's being smeared for the comments they made over 20 years, particularly in recent years, is just stupid. And it's ridiculous. So, thank you, Soap Opera. $2. Hey, you didn't talk about the endorsement of CPD. Great point. Big endorsement. CPD endorsed Bernie Sanders. They are kind of I believe, a coalition of many different groups focusing on people of color. It is a big endorsement. And these endorsements do not get as much play on CNN than the Working Families Party endorsing Elizabeth Warren. But to me, they're just as important. They're just as important. So, yeah, I think CPD endorsement is huge for Bernie because not only does it come with the endorsement, it comes with the organizing that they're going to help him do in Iowa and elsewhere. So I think super, super important. 100% agree with you, Jordan. Why, thank you. Adam Nation, I wish I can give you more, Jordan. Jank isn't always as evolved as one might hope. His background in conservatism shows at times, but he's a huge improvement over the incumbent. Your ego is showing. Okay. I guess if you disagree with me, that means I have an ego. I don't know what is egotistic. I'm just saying I think it's kind of ridiculous to say somebody's being smeared by media pointing out his own comments. You could say he's apologized for it, they should move on, but I don't think you'd have that same benefit of the doubt if it was a Republican or a centrist Democrat. So all I'm saying is, just like I think some Tulsi supporters have blinders on when you criticize her, just like I'm saying even some Bernie supporters have blinders on, have come after me when I criticize them for certain things. I just don't play by those rules. I'm not like team progressive 24/7 and never criticize a progressive. If there's a progressive that needs to be criticized, then I'm going to criticize them. It's not an ego thing. And to me, I don't really care if Jank wins or loses his race. I have no investment in it at all. And I honestly, to me, it's not even about Jank. If it was Kyle or somebody else in the same story, I would just be saying they got to defend their comments. I have to defend comments I make if I were to run for anything. So I just don't agree that it's a smear, but if you think that means I have an ego, okay. Miguel, do you know how I discovered Status Coup? I searched douchebag in glasses and it popped up. Thank you. I'm glad you found me. Progressive, Jordan, I don't think you can get past your bias, but to say that he is taking a spot that a real progressive could have is petty. Jank is not I didn't say that. I didn't say that. You're putting words into my mouth that I didn't say. So, and I don't, bottom line, I think there's an issue when people, they don't agree with you, so they say you're biased because they don't agree with you. This is not about, honestly, it's not about Jank. If I wanted to be really biased, I would have read through all the past comments he made. I didn't because I don't really think there's a need to. People pretty much know. It's not about bias. I just think it's kind of silly for somebody who's running for office who made comments not just 20 years ago, in recent years, to then say, I'm being smeared because people are bringing up those comments. We wouldn't give that same benefit of the doubt to other people. So you could say, yes, he's made bad comments, they're fair game, but he's way better than anyone else. That's definitely an argument. But I don't think it's biased to be like, no, I think a person should have to defend themselves if they've made some really bad comments about women. So, are you saying as if they just quoted him and left it at that? El Aliana? I mean, the stories I read basically quoted him. So I think they've obviously been gleeful in going after him. They don't like him. But the stories have quoted old blog posts and comments he made on the Young Turks. So, yeah. Jimmy smeared Bernie for taking back his endorsement of Jank. I don't think he smeared him. I think Jimmy disagreed with Bernie taking back the endorsement. And I disagree with Jimmy on that. We don't have to all agree 24/7. This is kind of what bugs me about the progressive movement sometimes. I think that, listen, if you want to watch stuff that just like 100% totally affirms every belief you have, go watch Fox News. There's entities that exist for that. Like somebody wrote the other day, like, I'm pausing my $30 donation because of something Jen said. Do me a favor. Don't pause it. End it. Like, I'm not trying to be, this is not about ego. This is about, but like, I have zero tolerance for people that, because like the outlet you're watching doesn't agree with you on certain things, they're biased or they have ego or their motives are bad or whatever. We're not talking about Russiagate here. I could understand if I was doing Russiagate 24/7 and pushing that. Yeah, pause your donation, end it, whatever. But like, there's so many. There's this mindset in the progressive movement that I think has happened over years, and some of it is where a lot of us are just like economically hurting, and with economic hurt comes sometimes unreasonable feelings. But I just think it's crazy. Like, if I say something that you don't agree with, or I have a position you don't agree with, like I'm pausing my donation, then you're not truly invested in status quo. Then you don't really support us for who we are, which is covering things that no one else is covering. If you don't like something or an opinion we have, you want to pause the donation, goodbye. If you think that's too rough, so be it. Did you hear the way Jen was talking the other day? Major bias. Alana, all I could tell you is Jen was with me every step of the way when I was let go from TYT. Jen was with me every step of the way when I was being smeared all over the internet. Jen happens to have knowledge of certain entities that were smearing me, certain entities that were actually planting negative stories about me with other media outlets. So if Jen is saying something, or Jen is pointing out that she might know things you don't, she's not trying to be cute. Jen knows a lot about certain players and certain individuals. And some of you have said, like, well, don't be vague if you know things. I legitimately cannot say certain things legally. So it's not like a choice I have made to just be like vague. I can't legally talk about certain things. If that doesn't spell it out for you, I don't know what would. But like, there's certain things that happened that you're not privy to that make Jen feel a certain way, make me feel a certain way. But I'm talking about this specific story, not based on any ill will. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that because people like Cenk and think he's a progressive, they say he's being smeared for comments he made. People make comments, especially commentators. He's deciding to run for public office. Godspeed to him. Do I think Cenk at his core believes in getting money out of politics? I do. Do I think he's as progressive as he used to be? I do not. Do I think he has a really, really bad case of Trump derangement syndrome? Yes. I actually said that publicly when I was at the Young Turks. Do I think the Young Turks has let down their audience by 24/7 Trump, 24/7 Russiagate, spending their resources on that rather than going to Flint and the places I used to go, sending whoever their reporters are to go cover those important stories? Yeah, I do. That's not bias. That's how I feel. But I would honestly say what I'm saying about anyone else. It's not about Cenk. I just think progressives, there's a certain, I think, value system with being a progressive. And part of that is being intellectually honest and intellectually consistent. I'm not saying Cenk is terrible because he made bad comments 20 years ago. I'm not even saying he's terrible because he made bad comments within the last 3 or 4 years, because a lot of people are only focused on those comments 20 years ago when the articles I read have several recently. All I'm saying is it's not a smear. He made the comments. He has to defend it. And as far as Bernie Sanders, me, as a progressive, I'm going to choose Bernie Sanders over Cenk Uygur Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and twice on Sunday. I don't think he needs the distraction. If you call it cancel culture or you say I'm being too whatever, I don't really care. The only smear I've seen, which somebody just said, is what the New York Times did to him because they literally changed his words and their meaning. But I don't have any patience for, I don't have any patience at all for people who are like, I'm pausing my donation or this, that, I'm unsubscribing. Go. We want people, they might not agree with us on everything. They might think I'm wrong on something. They might not agree with certain stories we cover, but believe in what we're doing, believe that it's necessary. The in-the-field reporting, the investigative reporting, and support us on that merit. Because there are channels out there, and I know it because I've had conversations with some of these people that say things that they do not truly believe 100%. But they say it because they're deathly afraid of losing their subscribers and going down in views. I don't give a fuck. With that, I love you. It's really not an ego thing. I'm not the kind of person to just tell you what you want to hear. Now, if the media starts going after Cenk for stuff that I find stupid or whatever, okay. I would say that. But I think the progressive movement needs to really change this mindset of if you don't agree or you're not breathing as fire breathing as I am, I'm whatever, pausing my donation or unsubscribing or I'm taking my ball and going home. Then guess what? We're going to be fighting and losing for the next 50 years. God bless. We'll have more details on our trip to South Bend, which is happening this week. We'll have some reporting, undercover reporting from Jen. Hey, Progressive, way. You say you have more info but can't give it to us. Oh, it's a smear if you don't give us all the info. You want to pay my legal bills if I give you the info? Would you like to pay my legal bills if I give you the info? I don't know how many more times I have to say it. I can't say certain things. It's not because I don't want to. I'm not independently wealthy. There's some things I'm not able to say. I'd love to tell you. So, see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, your support makes a big difference. Keep on signing up. We're at 744 now. Also, don't forget, we're trying to get around this YouTube suppression. Text 474747 to Coup, C-O-U-P. Makes a big difference. We're I think we're at 350 now. So we want to get that up as far as we can. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.